All right, let's take a look at what it looks like owning a Tesla in the morning. There's the Tesla charger. And the battery is currently at 276. So that's the juice I have for the day. Let's talk about how charging works and everything you need to know. So the reason I wanted to talk about charging first is I think it's probably the biggest concern people have when they think about an electric car. The two questions are, am I gonna have enough battery power to get to where I'm going without running out of juice? And if I'm low, how am I going to get charged and get enough power to get to the destination? And I think 5-10 years ago, that was an issue. That was a real concern. But I think Tesla specifically has redefined what's capable and what you can do. And I think you see now a ton of other car manufacturers coming on board. Jaguar has an electric car, BMW has an electric car, Audi, Mercedes has an electric car, and just a couple weeks ago, Porsche released a car that I think is the biggest competitor to what Tesla's doing. We'll talk about that in a second. But the first thing is the battery power. Do I have the range like I would in a gas car? And it's funny, I fueled up Lindsay's truck. I think it has like a 22-gallon tank, something ridiculous. The range on that thing is about 500 miles. Well, my Model 3, fully charged at 100%, can do 310 miles of range. So that is, if you think about it, I cover Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia for work, and all of the hospitals, with the exception of two, are probably 40 to 60 miles from my house. I have a couple that round trip are probably about 300 miles from my house. And I've had zero issues with it. And I don't charge the car to 100%. As you saw from the intro, I get into the car and it's at about 279 every day. And that is enough for me to get through my territory. So I would tell you that the range thing is not a real issue. Now, the other cars that are coming online with the other manufacturers, their range is sitting a little over 200. And you think, yeah, I think Porsche is saying they can get 300, but there's reports saying now it's going to be closer to 220 is what they get rated. Around 200 is still a little bit hairy in my opinion. I leave at 279 and I get home with around 100, a little under 100 most days. So I'm eating up about 200. And what's interesting about the range is relative. The range is specific to how you drive. I think of it like your cell phone. If you wake up in the morning and you are heavy on your device, you're streaming podcasts, you're making calls, you're doing work, you're doing Netflix at the end of the day, whatever it is, if you work that phone, the battery is going to drop quicker than if you just have it asleep most of the day and you're not really using your phone. The car is the same way. If I get in the car and I'm heavy on the acceleration and I'm all over the place with how I drive, I'm gonna eat, it's not a true 310 miles of range. The battery is relative to how you drive the car. So I know when I get up in the morning and it says 279, it's not a true 279, maybe it's like 250 with the way I drive. Well, if your car only has 200 to 220 miles of range and you drive like a normal person where sometimes you're driving fast, sometimes you're quick off the line, whatever it is, you're not getting 200, you're probably getting 175. Well, that now is getting a little bit hairy. So range is relative to how you drive. I think Tesla has had the most kind of buy-in to going fully electric and is invested the most money into it. Their range is the most. The Model 3 is 310. I think with the refresh of the S and the X, I think you're around 325. Nobody else is doing that, so Tesla, I think, kind of wins in that category with range. Now let's talk about charging your car and the different ways to do it. Well, when I bought my car, I had a couple people that had electric cars and they did not install chargers in their house. The reason is at work, there were chargers there, they were free, so that's a big plus. And they knew they were going from point A to point B every day, and they could manage their charging via their destination or work chargers. So starting off, I figured I work in a lot of hospitals. Most hospitals have chargers. I will do that. I will not buy a charger. And I realized real quickly that it was a mistake. My job can shift so quickly in that I'm on my way to Virginia, the case gets canceled, and I've got another case going on in Baltimore that now I need to turn around and drive 60 miles, 30 miles the other direction. So if I'm leaving the house and my battery's not close to 100%, I could get in a tough spot where, and it happened where I had to now, in between those 2 points I was headed, I had to stop and find juice somewhere. So for me, I don't have a specific end destination where I can charge every day for work. It changes at the drop of a hat. So I needed to know when I left the house that I had 100% battery or pretty well close to it when I left. So I quickly decided to install the charger you saw. And now every night when I leave, when I get home, I charge my car. The voltage I'm charging off of is 220. So at 220, I'm getting roughly 35 miles an hour. So by morning, my car is back to where it needs to be at 279, which is 80%. And I'll talk to you about that in a second, why I'm not doing 100%. But that works for me. That's easy. I know every morning when I get up. And an interesting scenario, I'm gonna cut in here with one night I forgot to charge. I'm gonna show you what that looked like. All right, this is the most nervous I've ever been since I've owned my Tesla. This is not good. So I made a huge blunder last night. I was in the hospital yesterday from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for cases. I didn't get home until like 10 o'clock. I was exhausted, parked the car, and I forgot to charge it. So when I woke up this morning, I had to leave about 5:30, 5:45, I think I was in the car, and I realized I only had like 140 miles, went right to the hospital, made it no problem. But then we realized the case we're doing needs a very specific product that never gets used. I did not have it, so I drove home to get it. I'm headed back to the hospital now, and I don't have enough juice to make it. This, 18 miles left, 4%, is taking me to a supercharger that's en route to the hospital. That supercharger, I think, does about 400 miles an hour. So I'm gonna sit there for like 10, 15 minutes, get as much juice as I can. As soon as I know I have enough juice to get to the hospital, I'm gone. Luckily, there is a supercharger close to the hospital, so after the case, I'll go there, get enough juice to get through my day, but this is not good. 18 miles, 4% left. Ugh. All right, we made it safe and sound. Here we are, 10 miles left. We are charging. That should ramp up here. Hopefully it ramps up. There it goes. That's no good. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. We're doing it. We're at 352 and change. All right, that's what I needed. We're gonna let this charge. So to get this to full would take 50 minutes, and I'm not going to full. I don't have the time to go to full, but we're gonna get as much as we can in like 15-20 minutes. Stay tuned. All right, it's been about 10 minutes and I got 78 miles. I'm still doing 384. So I could get this charged pretty quickly, but like I said, I don't have time. I've been here 10 minutes. I went from, what was it, like 10 miles to now I'm at 80 miles. So in 10 minutes, I got 70 miles. That's pretty impressive. I'm good. I gotta roll. So as you can see, it can be detrimental to your daily driving if you forget to charge. Just like if you forget to charge your phone at night and you wake up and it's half dead and you need it right away. So I made the mistake of not charging. It was not fun, but that goes to the point of charging on the road. So now there are superchargers everywhere. Tesla has totally revamped their charging, and there are superchargers everywhere. On top of that, there are OEM chargers, and there's an app called SharePoint, I think. I'll put a picture of it up here somewhere. There's an app that'll show you where all the chargers are. And on top of that, Tesla's GPS will show you where superchargers are, as well as an aftermarket chargers. So there are chargers absolutely everywhere. Personally, I only try to go to superchargers because they're charging at, I believe it's 440 amps. So when I go to a supercharger, and as you saw from that video that I just cut in, I'm getting like 350 miles an hour. So in an hour, less than an hour, I can fully charge my car. Whereas if you go to these other chargers, sometimes they're 110, sometimes they're 220. You want to try to charge at 440. Additionally, Tesla has just come out with their version 3 superchargers, which charge, I think it's 800 kilowatts. Long story short, it's 1,000 miles per hour is what you can get on these superchargers. So now you could pull into a supercharger, charge in 20-30 minutes and have a full charge and get out of there. So the fear of not being able to charge is changing. There was something I just heard in Tacoma Park, Maryland. A gas station totally revamped its gas station, got rid of all petrol type gas, and they've replaced it with, it's an electric charging station now. So all their traditional gas pumps are now electric. It charges at 440, if not a little higher. So that's interesting. But charging specifically, I want to talk last and not least about charging in general. So the way charging works is the cars charge quicker when your battery's lower. So a good analogy I heard is, if you have an empty glass and you want to pour water into that glass, when you start pouring, you can pour the water quicker into the empty glass. But as the glass gets full, let's say 80% full, you have to slow down your pour so it doesn't overflow. Well, the cars work the same way. When the battery's, let's say, around 10%, it will charge from 10% to 80%, if the charger will allow it, 350 miles an hour. But as you get to that 80%, you'll notice that miles per hour that you were getting, the 350 will drop to 250, 150. What's happening is the car slows down on charging as the car gets to that last 20%. So stopping into a supercharger at 80% isn't worth your time. Stopping into a supercharger at 10, 20, 30% will get you to that 80% a lot quicker. So that's how the cars charge. We talked about range. I really think if you were skeptical about charging your car, buying a car because you didn't know I'd drive long distances, that's a thing of the past. My mother drives to Asheville all the time in her Tesla, and that's longer than 310 miles. I think she stops twice to charge. And all these I'm saying and a lot, and the superchargers are placed in areas where there's restaurants or shops, so you can run in, get a bite to eat, use the bathroom. By the time you get back in, as you saw from my quick 10-minute, 15-minute break in at a supercharger, I got enough juice to get on the road. So don't let the batteries and the range be a thing to scare you from getting a Tesla and getting an electric car in general. I think you're gonna see these other manufacturers like Mercedes and Porsche and BMW, their range is gonna get better. Competition is a good thing. As soon as Porsche announced their new their car, Tesla announced they're working on a car that is going to beat those cars. So don't let that be a concern. It's not. Check it out. Get in a car and drive one. Go drive an electric car. I challenge you to go drive an electric car. You'll love it.